Story 1. Dread in Dark Alleyways, a Tale of Survival. As I wandered the unfamiliar streets of a foreign city, the shadows seemed to stretch and contort, whispering secrets of the night. My heart raced with each step I took, the echo of my own footsteps bouncing off the narrow alleyways that seemed to lead nowhere. It was supposed to be a holiday escape, a chance to explore a new culture, but now it felt like a descent into madness. The dimly lit alley I found myself in was lined with graffiti-covered walls, the air thick with the stench of decay. I quickened my pace, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched, but the sensation only grew stronger. Paranoia gripped me like a vice, every shadow morphing into a potential threat. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, their features obscured by a tattered hood. My breath caught in my throat as they approached, their movements slow and deliberate. I tried to convince myself it was just a passerby, but something about the way they moved sent shivers down my spine. I veered off the main path, hoping to lose them in the labyrinth of alleyways, but no matter how many twists and turns I took, they remained a constant presence behind me. Panic set in, my mind racing with thoughts of escape. I was a stranger in a strange land, with no one to turn to for help. As I reached a dead end, the figure closed in, their breath hot against my neck. I turned to confront them, ready to fight for my life, but as they lowered their hood, I saw the face of a man worn by years of hardship. His eyes held a glint of madness, a reflection of the fear that gripped my own heart. In that moment of shared terror, something shifted within me. I saw myself mirrored in his gaze, a traveler lost in a sea of darkness. And as he reached out a trembling hand, I realized that we were both survivors in our own right, battling our inner demons in a world that had long forgotten us. With a silent nod, he stepped aside, allowing me to pass. I stumbled out of the alley, my heart still pounding in my chest. The night air felt colder now, the weight of my own mortality pressing down on me. As I made my way back to the safety of my hotel, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that lingered in the dark alleyways. It was a reminder of the thin line between holiday escapades and nightmarish realities, a tale of survival etched in the shadows of my mind. Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 2. Sinister Escape in Abandoned Asylum. My name is Emily, and I never thought a holiday escape to an abandoned asylum would turn into a nightmare that still haunts me to this day. It was supposed to be an adventure, exploring the decaying walls of the old asylum with my friends during our spring break. Little did we know the horrors that awaited us within those sinister halls. As we entered the asylum, a chill ran down my spine, and a sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. The air was thick with dust and the stench of decay, and the silence was deafening. We wandered through the corridors, our footsteps echoing ominously against the cracked walls. It wasn't long before we realized we were not alone. Shadows seemed to dance at the corners of our vision, and whispers echoed through the empty rooms. Paranoia crept into our minds, and we began to question every sound, every movement, every flicker of light. As we delved deeper into the asylum, we stumbled upon a room that sent shivers down our spines. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and the air was heavy with a sense of malevolence. It was then that we heard it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to reverberate through the very foundations of the building. Panic set in, and we ran, desperate to escape the horrors that lurked within those walls. But the asylum seemed to twist and turn, the corridors shifting and changing before our eyes. It was as if the building itself was alive, toying with us, leading us deeper into its dark heart. I could feel the grip of terror tightening around my heart as we frantically searched for a way out. The shadows seemed to reach out for us, and the whispers grew louder, filling our minds with dread. And then, just as we thought all hope was lost, we saw it, a faint glimmer of light at the end of a long, dark corridor. We ran towards it, our hearts pounding in our chests, our breath coming in ragged gasps. And finally, we burst out into the open air, the sunlight blinding after the oppressive darkness of the asylum. We collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath, relief flooding through us. But as I looked back at the asylum, I knew that the horrors we had encountered would stay with us forever. The asylum had shown us the true meaning of fear, of paranoia, of the darkness that lurks within us all. And as we walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had escaped one nightmare, only to find ourselves trapped in another. Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 3. Hidden in Suburbia: The Haunting of Maple Street. I never thought a quiet suburban neighborhood could hold such dark secrets until I moved to Maple Street. The houses with their manicured lawns and picket fences seemed idyllic at first glance, but as I settled into my new home, I began to sense something sinister lurking beneath the surface. It all started with the neighbors, always watching, always whispering behind closed doors. They seemed friendly enough during the day, but as night fell, their smiles turned into sneers, and their eyes gleamed with malice. I tried to brush off my growing unease, attributing it to the stress of moving to a new place, but the feeling of being watched never left me. One evening, as I was taking out the trash, I heard muffled cries coming from the house next door. At first, I hesitated, unsure if I should intervene, but the desperate pleas for help spurred me into action. I knocked on the door, but no one answered. The cries grew louder, more frantic, and I knew I couldn't ignore them. I called the police, hoping they would arrive quickly and put an end to whatever horror was unfolding next door. But when they arrived, instead of rushing to the rescue, they exchanged knowing glances with the neighbors and dismissed my concerns as paranoia. I was left standing alone on the darkened street, the cries still echoing in my ears. Determined to uncover the truth, I began to investigate on my own. I followed the whispers, the rumors that circulated among the residents of Maple Street. And what I discovered chilled me to the core. Hidden beneath the facade of suburban bliss was a network of corruption that ran deep. The police, the very ones sworn to protect and serve, were involved in unspeakable acts, turning a blind eye to the suffering of their own community. The cries I had heard were just the tip of the iceberg, a glimpse into the horrors that lay hidden in plain sight. As I delved deeper into the darkness of Maple Street, I became a target. The neighbors, once smiling and friendly, now glared at me with open hostility. I knew I was in danger, that my life was at risk, but I couldn't turn back. I had to bring the truth to light, to expose the corruption that festered in the heart of suburbia. In a final act of defiance, I gathered my evidence and went to the authorities, hoping against hope that justice would prevail. But as I laid out my findings, I saw the same knowing glances, the same indifference in the eyes of those meant to uphold the law. Defeated but not broken, I turned my back on Maple Street, leaving behind the facade of normalcy and the horrors that lurked within. And as I walked away, I knew that the darkness would always follow, a reminder of the nightmares that can hide in the most unexpected of places. Anonymous Spectator Story.